I got out of the Navy with a leg full of titanium and a back that screamed every time the weather changed. A parting gift from some shrapnel outside Fallujah. Back home in the gray drizzle of Washington, I reconnected with Clara, my high school sweetheart. It was easy, like we'd never been apart, just on a long, painful detour. We fell back into step, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was actually home. We were at her place one night, a small 2-bedroom apartment that always smelled faintly of vanilla and whatever she'd baked for her daughter. I was dead to the world when a noise jolted me awake, creaking on the stairs. Not the familiar groan of the old building settling, but a person's weight. My training kicked in before I was even fully conscious. I was out of bed, moving silently to the closet where I kept a pump-action shotgun for just such an occasion. I racked a shell, the shuck-shuck echoing in the silent apartment. A man's voice, high and panicked, screamed Clara's name. Turns out he wasn't a burglar. He was Jesse, and the story was complicated. He wasn't her brother, not by blood. He was a ghost from her past, a childhood friend of her actual brother who had died from an overdose years ago. Clara, with her massive, bleeding heart, had always felt a sense of responsibility for Jesse, like he was the last living piece of her lost sibling. She'd found him strung out a while back and given him a meal, a little cash. Now he was on her doorstep, evicted and desperate. Because it was her house, her name on the lease. I had no say. My gut was screaming at me, but I saw the look in her eyes, that mix of pity and grief, and I bit my tongue. She let him stay on the couch. It was a disaster from day one. He treated her like his personal servant. He'd leave his filth everywhere, demand she cook for him, wash his clothes, and use her dwindling funds to buy his groceries and cigarettes. He looked at me with this smirking contempt, like I was just a temporary obstacle. He'd make little comments about my limp, asking if I got it running away. I let it slide for Clara's sake. The breaking point came one night about a month in. He'd been particularly awful all day, and I was on my last nerve. He tossed his greasy dinner plate on the coffee table and looked at me. "Hey, cripple, go wash my dish." Something inside me just snapped. I didn't yell. I just looked at him, my voice flat and cold. "Go fuck yourself." I turned to walk down the stairs and get some air, to walk until the red faded from my vision. I was maybe 3 steps down the narrow apartment staircase when I heard the door fly open behind me. He came at me like a freight train. No words, just pure rage. He slammed into my back and I went flying. My world was a blur of motion, and then a sickening crack as my head hit the concrete landing at the bottom. The pain was blinding. A white-hot flash that made my teeth ache. He was on top of me before I could even process it, his fists flailing. But pain is an old friend of mine. I gritted my teeth, found a reserve of strength I kept buried deep, and fought back. I bucked him off, got on top, and it was my turn. All the frustration, all the swallowed insults, all the anger at how he treated Clara, it all came out through my knuckles. I hit him again and again, a detached part of my brain just registering the sickening crunch of bone and cartilage. I didn't care if I killed him. In that moment, I knew someone was going to get seriously hurt, and I was making damn sure it wasn't going to be me again. Clara saved his life. The noise had brought her running. She saw me on top of him, my hand raised for another blow, and she screamed my name. It was a sound of pure terror, and it cut through my rage like a knife. I stopped, scrambling off him. As soon as he could breathe, Jesse started spewing lies, his voice a pathetic, gurgling whine. "Clara, he attacked me. He tried to kill me." I just asked him if he'd seen my phone, and he went crazy. For a terrifying second, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But she knew me, and more importantly, she knew him. The story was too ridiculous. Thankfully, our neighbor across the way, a paranoid tech guy, had a security camera pointed at the landing. It caught the whole thing. Jesse opening the door, charging at my back, the shove. The truth was, in 1080p, the next morning was a blur. I took Clara to her shift at Target, then dropped her 3-year-old daughter, Lily, at daycare. I need to pause here and tell you about Lily. She was this tiny little person with Clara's eyes and a laugh that could cure cancer. Her dad was a ghost, never in the picture, and I had fallen for that little girl just as hard as I'd fallen for her mom. The thought of being her dad someday was the thing that got me through the worst nights. Anyway, after dropping her off, I went to my own job on base. I had to explain to my commanding officer why my knuckles were the color of a plum and why I was holding an ice pack to a goose egg the size of a golf ball on the back of my head. He offered to call the MPs to get the civilian police involved so I could press charges. I refused. My CO, a man not known for his patience, told me I was a special kind of idiot and that letting this slide would come back and bite me on the ass. He was right. Jesse gave Clara an ultimatum that night. Either I was gone or he was. He told her he would walk out of her life and Lily's life forever. And to be fair to Clara, that worthless piece of trash was the only male figure Lily had ever known as a constant, a twisted, funhouse mirror version of an uncle. Clara was terrified of causing her daughter that kind of pain, of another man walking out on her. So she chose him. I would have rather taken an axe to the chest. The pain was physical, a hollow, crushing weight that made it hard to breathe. It's one thing to say goodbye to the woman you love. It's another thing entirely to kneel down and try to explain to a sobbing 3-year-old who has her arms wrapped around your neck that you won't be there to read her a bedtime story tonight tonight, or ever again. I don't know what kind of man can walk away from that with dry eyes, but I know I never want to meet him. I went back to my empty apartment. I found all the little things they'd left behind. A hair tie, one of Lily's dinosaur toys, a sweater of Clara's that still smelled like her. I put them all in a little box, planning to drop it off at her work when I could handle it. I was a wreck, but Jesse wasn't done. He wanted to kick me while I was down. He'd always bragged about his friends, guys who would have his back. I thought it was just hot air. It wasn't. In the months that followed, he put them to work. I came out one morning to find my truck on blocks, the wheels gone. They'd shattered every window and spray-painted pig fucker across the side. The repairs my insurance wouldn't cover cost me $2,500. The police took a report, but the security footage from the parking garage was useless. Hoodies, masks, gloves, case closed. 2 weeks later, I was woken up by the fire sprinklers. Someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail at my front door. The welcome mat was a smoldering, blackened mess, and the whole hallway was filling with smoke and that awful chemical-laced water. If those sprinklers hadn't worked, I would have been trapped. I live on the 3rd floor. There was no way I was jumping. This time, the cops were serious. Attempted murder gets their attention. But again, the footage was worthless. A figure in a dark hoodie, face completely covered. I told them I knew who was behind it. I gave them Jesse's name. My ex had actually reached out after she heard about the fire. She was horrified. I told her flat out, it was Jesse. I don't have proof, but we both know it was him. She promised she'd talk to him, and for a while things went quiet. I guess the cops showing up at her apartment to question him had an effect. In that time, she'd apparently forced him to get a job or get out. He'd landed a gig at one of those shady auto shops on the edge of town, the kind of place that overcharges for parts and forgets to tighten your lug nuts. It was the perfect fit for him, at least until the cops came to his new workplace asking questions about an arson investigation. The owners didn't like the heat. He'd only been there a couple of weeks, so they fired him on the spot. He took that personally. One night, about a month after that, I was coming home. I'd hit the gym after work, trying to sweat out the stress, and grabbed a pre-made salad from the grocery store. I pulled my rental car, my truck was still in the shop, into my designated spot and headed upstairs. A quick note on firearms. I legally own them, and I have a concealed carry permit. But when I'm on base, my pistol stays home. It's a huge pain to bring a personal weapon on base unless you're military police, and I wasn't about to leave it in my car all day. So I was unarmed. Just like the morning Jesse had jumped me, I lived on the 3rd floor, with one more floor above me. As I put my key in my lock, I heard footsteps thundering down the stairs from the 4th floor. Fast, too fast. I turned and saw them. 4 of them, all in dark hoodies, faces covered with masks, hands gloved. My door was half open. I dropped my groceries. I remember the sound of the plastic salad container cracking on the floor and tried to slam it shut. They were too quick. A foot wedged in the door and then a shoulder. The door flew open and they poured into my apartment. What happened next took 14 seconds. My tech geek neighbor across the hall had upgraded his security camera after the fire. We know the exact timestamps. I kept a loaded SIG P226 in a small, quick access safe bolted to the inside of my entryway closet. It's not ideal, I know, but after the fire, I wanted something within reach. The first guy through the door grabbed me, and in the scuffle, I managed to get my hand into the closet, punch in the code, and grab the pistol. I shoved him back hard, creating a few precious feet of space. I remember the image with perfect, chilling clarity. All 4 of them packed in my narrow hallway. The first guy, staggering back to his feet, starting to come at me again. I raised the SIG, chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson, and just as I heard one of them shout, "Gun!" and my training took over. There were no warning shots, no aiming for a leg. My mind went blank, and my body did what it had been taught to do 1,000 times. Center mass, head. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The first guy collapsed, a mess of red and gray. The second guy, who was right behind him, caught 2 rounds that passed clean through the first before I put one through his forehead. He dropped like a sack of rocks. The third guy froze for a microsecond, just long enough for 4 rounds to punch into his chest. He flew backward into the fourth, who was already trying to turn and run. I emptied the rest of the magazine through the body of friend number 3 and into whatever I could see of the last man. Unfortunately, the asshole lived. The first 3 didn't. When the police arrived, it was a butcher shop. The first guy's insides were on the second guy. The second guys were on my wall. They were all pronounced dead at the scene. The fourth guy was Jesse. Of the 3 rounds that hit him, one grazed his ass, another lodged deep in his right butt cheek, and the third, the fateful one, hit him square in the spine, right around his kidneys. It shattered 2 vertebrae and permanently ended his career in whatever scumbag activities he was into. He was paralyzed from the navel down. He'd need a permanent catheter for the rest of his life and a diaper for everything else. He would never walk again. When he was stable enough to leave the hospital, he was transferred directly to prison. Since he survived, he caught the charges for his 3 dead friends: conspiracy to commit murder, assault, battery. He even got hit with reckless endangerment because I'd fired my weapon in an apartment complex with an open door. He was never going to see the outside world again. I'd like to tell you that's where the story gets better. That Clara saw the truth, that she took me back, we got married, and I got to be Lily's dad. dad, but that's not what happened. Within 24 hours, she called me. She didn't cry. Her voice was ice. She told me she was scared of me, that she never wanted me near her or her child again. She said if she ever saw me near her home or her job, she would call the police. She called me a monster, a murderer. She accused me of baiting Jesse, of calling the cops on him at his job just to provoke a response so I'd have an excuse to shoot him. She completely ignored the months of harassment, the vandalism, the firebombing. In her mind, I was the villain. I never saw her again. She blocked me on everything. Her family blocked me. She changed her number, transferred to a different target across the state, and a few months later, moved to a different city. It's been 8 years. I still haven't heard from her. A friend of a friend told me she got married in 2020. She has another kid now. She's happy. So good for her. I never got my white picket fence. Believe it or not, killing 3 people, even when they're in your home trying to kill you, messes you up. Especially when you're trained for Baghdad, not your own damn hallway. There's a profound difference between taking a life as part of a mission and taking one to save your own skin. The PTSD was bad. For a full year after I got my guns back from evidence, I couldn't even touch one without having a full-blown panic attack. The Navy was surprisingly great about the whole thing. They helped with the investigation. My CO, the one who called me an idiot, gave a statement about the morning I came into work after Jesse first jumped me, corroborating my story. They offered me a place on base with a protective detail until things blew over. I said no. 8 years is a long time. I'm retired from the service now, working in the private sector. I have my own LLC doing cybersecurity and physical site security consulting. I make great money. I have a boat. My partner of 3 years is the most incredible, supportive person I've ever met. I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that she has my back. We're talking about kids. Life is good. It's quiet. But you know what really, truly warmed my heart? Just the other day, a Google alert I set up 8 years ago finally went off. It was Jesse's first and last name, followed by the word obituary. Turns out some guy in prison got sick of the loudmouthed punk in the wheelchair running his mouth, thinking he was untouchable. So, he used Jesse's own wheelchair to beat him to death, then finished the job with a few good stomps. The obituary, of course, didn't say that. It painted him as a bright and lovable lad who fell on hard times. The real kicker was the last line. Apparently he was survived by a daughter none of us ever knew he had. Sucks for her, I guess, but I doubt she ever knew him. And honestly, that's probably for the best.